I'm not up on the living well industries in America or in Australia. So I want to get y'all's take. I discovered a new product. I think it might be a new product they have here in the Netherlands. It was on an end cap, specially displayed. Kind of like we're introducing a new thing. Might be it's old, but it took me a few times going by it in the store, which advertising works apparently, just persistence. And I finally picked it up. And what it is there's a little jar, and it has ginger in it, and there is plain ginger, little tiny cubes of ginger, kind of like a minced garlic that you can buy pre-minced in the store. It looks like that, but it's ginger, and then they mix it with little pieces of orange rind. So you can have ginger with orange. You could have ginger with citron. Just I think citron in Netherlands is lemon. I don't know where they fall on the do you call a lemon and a lime different things. That might be a linguistic
limes with the
cultural
green
thing.
ones.
Yeah, right. But I think in Spanish they're both the same word, right? And so you've got to figure out like if I remember, maybe someone can correct me. But anyways, and then you have just plain ginger. Now, I want to ask the first question. When you see this, I'm going to give you one more hint. It's not pickled. It's just preserved in water, right? So it's not pickled ginger. But when you two see this, what do you think these things are for? Three flavors of it. What am I going to do with this?
That just feels like a difficult question. I don't know, like some type of cooking spice.
Well, yeah, definitely
Apply it
cooking.
to like
but what are you cooking? Like pickles or
just,
something?
yeah, applying it to
you know-
like some kind of something you want to apply
Or
that spice to
soup?
when you're cooking up.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I mean that's what I thought, that it would be like,
Fish.
stir fry with some ginger is really great, right? Just put a bunch in there. But I looked at it, and I believe I could be totally wrong, which is going to make this even more of a delightful quixotic quest. I believe it's for making tea,
Oh, okay.
Oh,
because
come on. They're trying to trick you to put like Worcestershire sauce in your tea.
because that is a big thing here in the Netherlands, is
Oh
ginger
yeah.
tea. And so you just get big old slices right off of a piece of ginger and put it in hot water, and you got yourself a stew going, right? Like, people drink that all the time. They serve it everywhere. If you want ginger tea, you can get that. If you want fresh mint tea, you can get that. If you want to put mint in ginger, boom, they got you covered, right? Like,
Sounds good.
that's
Is it good?
That'll work.
yeah, well, I've never had it in this pickled way, but yeah, it was pretty good. I had a small cup of it, and having the orange, and the thing about it was you don't have to cut up the ginger. And I think it might even infuse it like faster. And I think it was great. And then if you're this kind of, well, I don't know what this kind of person is, but then you can like eat the little ginger cubes afterwards if you like that kind of thing. That is, I guess if you're making a tea, you could put it in a wire thing so that you don't have the remaining ginger thing. So my question is, do you think we could introduce this product in your two geographies with a new software? Not new, but we're trying to revitalize one of our older lines of business, the software defined talk grocery distribution branding channel. And I'm thinking this one might be the one. Last time we had a big hit was in 1947, as you remember. I think this might be a way to jumpstart it. We might be able to get back in the game.
I think
rapidly.
hit is pretty relative. I mean, there are a lot of international grocery stores around where I live, and I frequent them because I'm usually looking for like tomatillas. And so, but the thing is, like, they've got just about everything. You'll go in, and literally, last one I went to, the tomatillas were next to the Polish sausages, right? And there were like
Sure.
30 kinds of canned Polish sausages. And one kind of tomatilla, and I stocked up. But like, yeah, you could probably, if it's not here, you could probably introduce it. And the US, you can buy anything in the US.
Now,
I want to go
part.
the other way on this, Cote.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
just
Go
want
ahead.
to actually go the other way. I want to say, could we do this? Can we introduce something to the Dutch culture? And I think what you do is you take that exactly as it is and flavor it. And what we do is we make iced tea out of that. So we put that into tea. We make
I'm
it
liking
cold,
this.
and we serve it with like a big old thing of ice, and we call we'll call it ginger iced tea, right? And then we'll say it's from the United States or whatever, right? We'll just kind of make something up. It's
Yeah, that's not a selling point right now. Maybe.
good point. Maybe we say it's yeah, it's no, maybe we come up with something like the cold plunge is really big. Like it's the cold water mixed with the ginger that revitalizes your day. Something
Well,
along
now you don't want to like pigeonhole them over into the health food stores, right? We don't want him to be like lost in that maze. Because
can we just throw some sugar in it too, and then call it like, and it's a little pick me up for the kids, something like that, a little bit of that.
How about we call it something like, I like where you're going here, Brandon. We call it something like the ginger chiller, right? Or the ginger cold breeze, or ginger in the shade. I don't know. We're kind of in that area, and you're right. This is like a part of strategy that you kind of miss reading the canon. Is sometimes your strategy is the assembly of things, right? So you might be like, well, we're actually a ginger company. We have all this ginger. But you do this, I forget this name of this type of strategy move, but you're like, okay, you're trying to figure out how to sell ginger, new markets to go into, new pricing, etc. What if instead we did something with the ginger that really turns out not to be that much? We just put it in tea.
You're still gonna be left with a whole bunch of ginger.
Well, but see, we drive demand.
I'm kidding. Yeah. No, I follow. Yeah.
I mean, like I'm sure one day before Dasani was invented, is Dasani's Coca-Cola, right? The Coke company was like, "What the fuck am I gonna do with all this water?" And so and then that guy went out into the Coca-Cola break room, and then there was some person who had their head in their hands, and they're like, "I got all these plastic bottles, I don't know what to do." And then they just happened to sit next to each other, and then here comes this other person who's like, "Listen, I've got these labels, and I don't know what to do with them."
Well, Cote, you're making a strong case for RTO, is what I'm hearing.
I think that we've cracked the code. This is bottled water wouldn't exist if people didn't work in the office. Which
I think
is that the case for RTO or against? I don't know.
The market that continues to exist, we've talked about many times on the show, and I'm going to continue to pitch ideas till we get it. It's like Europe is a huge market for ice. It's an untapped market for ice. The product manager of ice is constantly being asked about the EMEA strategy. And it's like, they don't use ice in their drinks. They won't put ice in their refrigerator. They don't have ice makers. The CEO of ice is all over this team, right? And it's like, why in the world can we not break into Europe? And I just continue to believe it's like, whether it's iced tea, whether it's just cold water, maybe it's tumblers, right? That keeps the water cold. Like, I got to believe we can do it. Eventually we're going to break into that European market, and ice is going to be huge. It's going to be huge in Europe.
I think I haven't even thought of it in those terms, but the addition to TAM to ice, if you add in Europe, massive. Huge. It's going to be huge. So big. I mean, and they know it's just, it's really, is that Shingy guy available? Because I think I think what this needs is some thought leadering. You could just bring it in, do some TED EU talks, kind of explain what's going on there. You've got to really we'll start working with celebrities. I know.
Would it be better if we delivered it through like its own app store? Do we need like an EU app store that's like gone over all the regulations?
Now you can sideload it,
and we can get into it some way, right? Yeah. Like if every ice cube had like a little pop up, you had to click on it and be like, "Oh, you're cold," and then you drink it, right? It's something like that. Yeah. Like, is there a way we can? Data. Is there a way that we can just we just gotta get over that final regulation, a little bit, just get those ice cubes.
Now I want to
see the bad news though. The bad news is the margins on ice are terrible.
I think they're going to be huge. They will be huge.
Here's the thing: bigger ice cubes, bigger margins. Now I want to like, maybe one last idea. We can put this in the in the parking lot, or as it were, the train station, since we're talking about Europe. And I think maybe regulations could be a problem, but they might we might be able to judo it, right? Maybe regulations are the basis of what we're doing, in that we're like, ooh, those tariffs you're paying on ice and ice machines. I mean, like, they're prohibitive, and like also like, do you really want your ice to be governed by Trump's America? Don't you want to come up with your own standards for ice? Like,
man, you're putting the Shiv in the GE ice maker there, Cote. So you're like, all in on
Now
what
we
was it,
go
Emerson?
we go to because I think here in the Netherlands, Philips, big company, right?
Phillips. That's your ice maker.
And I think we go to Philips and we're like, listen, there's a real opportunity here. Now, if you think those GE profile ice machines are already expensive to get into Europe, how about if I increase it by 25%?
Yes.
Right. And in fact, maybe if you innovated ice technologies, you could broker a deal if there was enough demand in the States to be like, how about we don't have a tariff on ice machines? Let's
So,
break
so
that
you,
in.
are you pivoting careers here? You're going to become the
I-
VP of ice machines?
Listen, I also just want to add that I feel like a great way for Europe to market this would be like, you know, you've never had water at 0 degrees. Because that's sort of like a nice jab at the Fahrenheit.
that.
You know what I'm saying? It's a little bit like, oh, you Americans with your weird Fahrenheit scale. 0 degrees is the real ice, right? Like that. There's like a good like culture war kind of moment. You could really start to rally the
no
Europeans.
Fahrenheit lover can argue that.
You know, you could rally the people around Celsius like they've never rallied before. And I think ice at 0 degrees is the way to go.
Now this is I think Shingy can latch onto this is the way we go in is through metric system nationalism.
Yes.
Right. Like
really
said. just jingo up the whole like Celsius metric thing. And I think maybe and just to build on that, I thought maybe we would be wrapping this up, but we could do one more thing here to build on it is, you know, you could say, what is the difference between American ice and European ice? 0. And
love it.
And
done.
You know,
our work here is done. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, whoever launches this, will be sending our invoice your way.
Yeah, I think what we know, Matt Ray Diallo needs to dump the entire portfolio, put it in ice.
It's got a bold future.
Here
we are in February, and I'm thinking by July this ice is going to be worth a ton.
And as we've been saying, as we shop this around on our roadshow to the banks, look at your portfolio and your strategy and put it on ice.
Well said. Well done.
Well, speaking of revolutionary ideas, I think you know, always lots of stuff to talk about in the AI world. There was I have to confess, I tried to use AI to read it, and I don't remember what it said. But there was that big essay by Tim O'Reilly about AI programming changing as we know it, and I think you read and remembered it, Brandon. I remember there being one clever turn in the no, I mean, I remember one clever turn, which is basically just like, you know, you'll have, I think someone wrote this in some social media thing, is like, in the future, you will have programmers who use AI and no other programmers.
No one else. Yeah.
So what was our buddy Tim O'Reilly writing about there?
Yeah, well, I think it was just kind of what we said. I think, you know, his pitch is just sort of, you know, that AI's kind of revolutionized how people write code, and the only way forward is just to embrace it, because this is how everyone's going to do it going forward. And he kind of draws some, you know, historical analogies, like, you know, going back to like there was a time where only people wrote assembly and did punch cards, and there were no high level programming languages, at least that way we think of it today. Along comes the compiler, along comes, you know, many programming languages, along comes many frameworks, along comes automated testing. So I think he's sort of just pitching it as sort of like, hey, this is the way of the future. And if you don't really get on board, you know, you're just going to find yourself at a significant disadvantage. So, you know, it makes sense. And I think the thing that got me thinking about it, as I've done some like small projects with Cursor, I couldn't agree more, but maybe we'll get into this a little bit more in detail, but it's sort of like, I guess more fundamentally, I just kind of think to myself, like, your perception of AI today is completely tied to like, does it help you do your own work? And I think clearly software developers are the people that have probably literally experienced the moment of like, this would have taken me 3 hours or a day, and it was done in a few minutes. And it's like, that's why that group is really, you know, kind of has already felt it, right? And I think we can talk about Ben Thompson and others, as more people are touching it with their real jobs, it's like, it's a real wow moment versus, you know, things where people are just like, it's just a chat bot, it's just a toy, why would anyone do it? Because they've not had that moment where they were like, oh, this actually did a task for me that would have taken several hours. So that's where he's coming from.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, you know, and I don't mean this to be in a shitty, snarky way, but I think one of my theories is that, like, the only way to like understand generative AI stuff is to like use it a lot. It's not as obvious a thing of like, I imagine when someone saw the first car, they were like, I get it. Like I can go a lot faster from point A to point B, no problem, right? Like understandable. But until you actually like sit down and for a couple of days use the AI stuff, like you don't have a realistic notion of it. And we here at Kote Skotak Industries had an instance of that. My wife Kim started using it, and then she started using it one day, and I think she used it all day long. She was just like, this is amazing for like all the stuff that she wanted to use it for, which I think that's the experience you have to go through. And yeah, as you said, Brandon, that's why for programmers, it's like not really much of a discussion. It just is. And it works well.
Although I did think of you, Matt. I think, Matt, you've kind of brought like a more, I don't know, let's call it a pragmatic side to this. And I don't know, like, what are your thoughts? Because I just think like, do you feel like, no, it's like you got to write every line of code? Because there is like a school of thought of like, if you're not writing, let me say it this way, there is a potential, like, I don't really believe in this, but people can kind of say this is like, well, if the computer's doing too much, you don't know what you're doing, right? Like you won't be able to fix things. Well, you're too dependent, that kind of thing. Right. And it's like, I don't know. So what are your thoughts? I just thought of you when I was reading it.
I mean, when I read through this, that did occur to me. There was kind of this jump many years ago that, mentally I made as a developer when, when you first start off, you're usually just you and your program. I'm an individual coder. I'm working on this. But as you started to get into your career and working with other people, working with teams, and then moving to open source, your mind shifted from, I'm no longer the master of all this. I'm the navigator of this shared landscape. And we're working on this thing together, and I'm taking inputs from different people, and I'm having to rationalize how they think about it. And AI is kind of like the next step up, where now, instead of like knowing that it's just a bunch of us, all wrangling this thing together and hopefully having kind of a shared mental model, we're able to move faster, but we have to spend more time reading and understanding the changes that come through. Like this whole writing versus reviewing and understanding has shifted, because it used to be like you really had to like do a lot of writing. You had to like, oh, I'm going to write this code and I'm going to test it. And and testing frameworks made it easier to get faster feedback on what you'd written. But now it's like a lot of the writing's being taken away from you almost, where you come in and you say like, this is what I want to do. And the AI is like, oh, hey, this is what it'll look like when you're done. And you're like, okay, now I'm going to read that, make sure that that's actually what I wanted. Yeah, I think that'll work. And now I'll go, test it a few times and sounds good, which is exactly the reaction you had to a pull request, right? You're like, I think this looks good. And like the longer the pull request, the less likely you were to read every single line tightly or, really fine. So that, old XKCD or something where, a 2-line PR gets a lot more, review than a 1,000-line, just because people are like, I give up. And now AI is like, oh, here's 50 lines, here's 50 lines, here's 50 lines, here's 50 lines. And you're just like, geez, I hope this is good. So I think you're right. I like your idea. Your focus is changed.
Yeah, it's like we're all reviewers or we're all editors.
We're all reviewers now.
It's really what it's become. And I think when for everyone listening, I'm sure many people took computer science in college. So it's like, just my experience is sort of like, it's great. Like you take the assembly class, right? Like for me, it was like Motorola 68,000. You learn how to write assembly code. You complete your big project. It took forever to write like the smallest assembly program where you're just lighting up a few things. And it's like, it took an entire semester of work to get this thing to do something that's like small. And then it's like, and you think to yourself, intellectually interesting, glad I understand it, close the book, and then you never do it again. Like I have never ever in my thought, like
You've never written a Lisp compiler in Java before? Again?
Right. Yeah. And it's and the same thing. I think compilers is the same way. It's like you take a class, you build like a toy compiler, you compile one program, and it's just like, oh my God, it took an entire semester. And then you think, I will never do this again. So I think it's just going to be the same thing. It's like you're going to like probably take a class in life where you write everything manually in college, right? And they make you do it, or they force you to do it some way. and then you probably will never do that again, right? You'll just
but
you'll go on this.
that experience, that hands-on like level set, kind of grounds you in your knowledge. I still feel like there's going to be a lot of people skating by with just the bare minimum, and
Yeah.
eventually it's going to catch up as people are pushing code in that they don't really know what it does. I mean, we already have this problem, but and we had this problem before AI, right? People are pushing
Right.
code in that they're not
So
exactly
it's,
sure
yeah,
what
it
it
may
does.
accentuate it, but like I still think, though, to be more optimistic, it is, you know, the AI tools will let people learn things a little bit faster.
I
And for
hope so.
those that are,
That's
you know,
the
what,
you
and I
know,
think just
the
having
good side of
teenagers,
it.
I think we all have teenagers or something, like, and it's like at some point, like even with a teenager, you just, you know, you kind of have to convince them, like, yeah, there's lots of ways you don't have to do, you can get around doing this thing you're supposed to do. But at some point, you got to do this thing to learn it. You know, it's like there's a moment where like every human being has to be like, I need to learn this. And in learning it, it means I can't just have the AI do it. And like one thing I've seen some students do, and I like it, is sort of like, you know, do the work. If they actually do their assignment completely, right, and get it done all on their own, and then they put it in AI. It's like, okay, grade my assignment based on this rubric, right? You know, based on how the teacher would. And then I'm like, that's perfect, right? It's like, great. Like,
Sure.
why not get the real time
But
grade and then make the corrections? And then so it's like for someone dedicated, like, I'm going to learn it, I'm going to use it to grade it myself. That's going to be great. Now, the person that just sort of like just do all the work for me, I don't know. You're always going to have that problem. I think it's just always going to exist.
But also you pointed out, there are a lot of times you'll be like, I'm never going to do this again. So those people will probably not put in the effort. They'll just be like, ChatGPT, do my homework, and that class is over. Check mark. Now I'm going to go work in sales. So well, no, I mean just something unrelated to my degree.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. I don't know, Coach. What do you think? Where's your you seem I would say you quite haven't had the epiphany. Like I think you like it, but I'm gonna put you in the same Ben Thompson category. Like writers, I think people that really write and really enjoy writing, I think have like they want to fight this a little bit. Like if you listen to Ben Thompson, who did a couple analysis this week where he basically had the AI agent do like his write up, and then he did it, and he was just so fundamentally sure his was better, right? And I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like, to me, I was like, I don't know, it's not that different, right? But I think for him, you could tell like it's like really pierces at his soul that like he is bringing the unique insights that are significantly better than the AI side of it. So I just think the writers, whereas I don't think the software developers, I think the software developers like, I code tested, it passed, it looks good. In fact, it's even a little bit better than the way I want it. Check it in, right? Or issue the pull request. So what is the writer's perspective?
Well, I think, let's see. Let's do it this way. If you remove the fear of your income being damaged, then what else are you afraid of? Because it's a perfectly valid thing to be like, I don't like this technology because it means I now make less money. That's cool, right?
Yeah.
And that's a whole separate conversation. And then you could also ask the question, and this is where the programming stuff is analogous. Let's talk about it in enterprise terms. Does this writing achieve the same business outcome? Now, what does business outcome mean in this? Like, I think about this question a lot, especially in marketing, right? Like, I think we could write an original blog article or press release from scratch, or we could just kind of like conversationally talk to one of the AI things and tell it what we want and what we want to do. And probably after a few hours, it'll have something that achieves the same business outcome, right? Like, so you like you could take the press release. There probably is very little value in like the crafts in a press release being hand carved, right? Like that seems like the first thing you would want writing to do, right? Now we can go all the way down to the bottom and say like, all right, let's say you're going to write like, we're going to write a piece for EMEA or the EU about how great ICE is, right? And like we sort of know that this needs to have some character to it. It's going to have like some spiciness or whatever. Like, it feels like if you just had the AI thing write it, it probably wouldn't be as effective. But I think in my experience over the past month or so, like you can, you can do this with both Chat GPT and Claude. Claude has it built in, so you've got to figure out how to manually do it with Chat GPT. But you can teach it a voice to use very easily, right? Like as far as I'm concerned. And so again, like I think it's fine, and I think it would be great to do more of it. And there's maybe two things there. One, like Matt raised an analogy of like uh I'm a programmer, but I'm also like a navigator of all this programming stuff, right? Like I'm directing it and orchestrating it, and I'm doing a little bit here and a little bit there, right? Like we have a word for that in organizations, executive, right? Like just because an executive's not doing the work doesn't mean they're not making a shit ton of money. And at least they would say, so we've got a clear-cut case where you can delegate the actual work being done and yet reap a ton of profit and also create shareholder value, right? And similarly, I think the reason that is because you have, I don't know the term for this, but you do scaling through delegation, right? So the effect of one person by having all these different things do it for them, they have a bigger effect. Just like with programming. So like if you could only program like 5 functional units a week, and now you can program 30 functional units a week, you could think about, I mean, this is the old paradox thing. You could think about that being as like, now you're fired, or it could be like, oh, there's finally CSV export from my banking app, right? Like you could, like there's all sorts of features people want added that like we're constrained by that. Now back to the writer side, right? Like apply that same logic to writing stuff. So like, when I was writing a column for the Register, I could write a 15 to 1800 word piece that was good enough to publish and be paid for in, if I really had to, let's say in 4 hours of like nonstop working, right? Which really means a day or 2 days of like calendar time, right? So if you cut that down by, let's say it only takes like 90 minutes, more or less, which I think is reasonable based on like my using this kind of stuff, then I could write 5 columns a week and like only work, I can't do math that quick, 20 hours a week, right? And now on the other side, further in the writing production stuff, the editors could do the same. They could start editing more and more books, right? And on and on and on. And then what this would mean, now we already have a glut of written material out there, but like as with the programmer, this means that like your favorite writers could all be Stephen King. Like we could finally have the sequels to the Game of Thrones books come out, right? It would be great. And then the King Killer Chronicles, we could find out what happens to that guy. Like all the trilogy constipation.
So it's a little Jevons paradox, right? Like it's the whole thing. No, I like that. I think that makes
and I think sense. I think like the the middle case, which I think is obvious, but it's worth going through from a non-programmer standpoint, is like, I mean, for a programmer, it's a little different. Well, it's not actually that different. It's same thing analogously. But from a writing standpoint, also, even if you don't just click publish on it finally, like that, the sorting through random ideas you have, organizing it into text, and having a draft is a huge amount of work as far as like what a human does, right? And even if you as a writer like read the draft that it generated and you end up deleting the whole thing and starting over, like that is actually hard to achieve as well, right? Just organizing your thoughts and figuring out what you want to write. And then oftentimes, as writers tell you, very professional writers, you always throw away your first draft. So now you don't have to do that. Someone else can write it for you, and then you can throw it away and then get to writing something. So it's just like there's all this little tuning that goes on in there. And I think as with the programmer, the obligation of the writer is to now be more productive. And that can mean two things. One, if you're working for someone else who skims off the value that you create, then that means you're going to have to be doing the same amount, if not more work, right? But if you're more in control of the own, I don't know all the Marxist terminology for this kind of stuff, but if you're more in control of the value that you produce, then you work less, right? Like, or something, you feel out this equilibrium of what you can do there. So I don't know. It's just like, basically like just because you don't like carve a letter into a clay tablet and let it dry doesn't mean you're a worse writer because you use like a fountain pen or a keyboard. It's just all of these little things that kind of add up.
I like that. I think it all makes, so I think in the end it kind of comes back to like the fundamental thing. It's like I think people are like just in general afraid of like what value, like, you know, they're kind of like, what value will I still kind of bring? So I think there's obviously the chance to do more or to do stuff faster. And then I think kind of just going as I think about it more, it's just sort of like, you know, it'd be, I guess it's sort of like the level of the experience I've had with AI is it still requires a human being to like be heavily involved in the editing, right? Like the idea of the agentic side of it, like not saying it won't happen. So maybe it will, but like, I don't think you can give it the task, like go build me a web app that's an expense management system and just do it. Right. Like you gotta be, you know what I mean? Like you need someone like maybe like it has to kind of watch it do step by step. Like, okay, let's build the UI. Okay, now that looks good. Okay, now let's build the backend. You know, someone has to be hand holding it day by day. So that I think the idea of the agent, or just sort of like, you know, start a Substack that writes tech news commentary every day and send it out to everyone. Like, you know, you just, you know, there it isn't there. So maybe it will get there. So I just still feel like it's like it to Matt's, I guess, original point. Like we're all basically reviewers or editors, which I think is definitely true. And I guess it's to be determined whether or not you can really be lights out, hands off, and it just go off and do that thing. I haven't,
well,
you know, this is back to like, go ahead.
Like a couple of things there. One, like, yeah, there's still like, at least at the moment, you still have to bring the ideas to the thing. Like, I'll have to try this. But if I went to ChatGPT and I just wrote, write me something, I don't know what it would do, right? But you've got to give it some direction, like, you know, or you just wrote like, do my job. Like the first thing it would do is ask you a question, like what your job is. And, you know, that's similar to like if you asked it to write an expense system, it would act exactly like a human team of developers. And it would say, what do you want? Right. Like you would have to specify this.
I need requirements.
Right. And so like, you know, it might be better at systematically walking through that and doing things. And I think, you know, just to kind of layer onto it, right? Like, I think I've talked about this before, but there is like so much time spent on this first draft thing, just getting ideas down in every walk of life, that like eliminating that like means you can like do something else. Right. Like I think there's a lot of organizations, a lot of like people in their own life who just like, they feel like they're overrun with things. They can't do things that they would rather focus on because they have to like, I don't know, figure out how to pay their taxes. Right. I mean, as something relevant, and like automating, like there's, you know, I guess what I'm getting at is in the SRE world, like eliminating and automating toil isn't seen as like a mark against your character. Right. It's seen as like something that's good. Yeah. And so like, I think maybe what something like generative AI brings to the rest of the world is this notion of like, what you're doing is toil. And like, you don't have to do that now. Like you can just focus on the other stuff and you can create new problems that you can focus on. Now, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, that all sounds like the very positive side of it. so as usual, here I am to like provide needles for your balloons. It's like, it's also the fact that it just lowers any sort of barrier to entry. So, you know, you mentioned, oh, you know, an AI, you know, tech news site that just spits out a dozen articles a day. It's like, well, yeah, as soon as there's one of those, there's a dozen of those. And we get to the same point. I mean, we already have this problem with AI slop, where how do you trust anything? How do you find quality? And, you know, I'm reading a Neil Stevenson book set in the near future. And one of the things, one of the concepts it had in it is the fact that like there's so much slop in the news and, you know, media space that the more affluent people have editors who, or not editors, you know, like reviewers, filters, you know, the people curators, people who go and curate the feeds, and you end up like subscribing to curated feeds. And, you know, the super affluent have like individual ones, and the rest of us, you know, plebes get the, you know, the consumer grade consumer grade ones, and I feel like that's where we're headed, and I'm not really happy about it because it just
Yeah,
feels
yeah.
like it
I
changes
mean,
the whole window.
I guess there's at least two possible things. One is you could end up, one, you want to watch only like HBO and Apple Plus shows over here, okay, like high quality, good. And then the other one is like you're cursed to only watch HDTV for the rest of your life, right?
Ooh,
And
bravo.
like
Yeah.
and like, it's an analogous thing where like creating reality TV shows as basic cable has shown, and like all, everything is like it's super cheap, and yet it is consumed by a lot of people, right?
Right.
So like, and it's very profitable because it's so, et cetera and so forth, right? Like I'm not in this business, but it seems like a good business model, right? Like for various reasons. And so on the other end, like it's also like it's I guess it's fine. Although as to invoke him again, Ben Thompson almost always jokes like clearly all that services revenue isn't from Apple TV Plus that they make, but so I guess the cultural worry there becomes like, does all the crap TV occlude good content, right? And that's the concern, right? Is
Hmm.
like, are do we basically ruin the ability to have good content that we like? Now, there's a couple of things running around there. One is like, well, I mean, the AI could create good content too, and if people like it, then is slop defined by I don't like it, or is it defined by an AI made it, right? And
Yeah.
so like, and like, because I can also be a great slop producer, like I could make slop, but it's more of like, well, yeah, if this content is shit, then it's shit, and then if people like it, okay, right? Like, what are you gonna
Yeah.
do? But and I think but that it would be a concern, is like, do we? It's kind of like the what's the show where the fat people are in space and there's a robot left on
Wally.
Earth?
Ever?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like do
How
we
is it I
just
think about Wally every single day now?
like do we basically ironically write ourselves into a corner, and we just forget the way we no longer can make like Severance or something, right? Like, because we're just used to like really shitty like slop things.
Well, but also, I mean, there you go. Hopefully, hopefully the barrier to entry, like you can make high quality stuff on the cheap now, maybe. I mean, so
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, yeah, I was talking with my uh the instructor at my gym about movies, and I turned him on to like David Lynch, and he's gone off on like watched every single one of them except for Dune, which I'm like, you could probably skip Dune unless you've read the books, and uh and really want to do that. But the thing is, it's like, those movies never made any money, right? They were
Yeah, yeah.
always niche, and hopefully, I mean, I guess here's the real question: is the quality of music being made today better? Because that's the perfect example. It's already
Sure, sure.
completely democratized, and it's completely slop. I mean, anybody can and does do it,
Yeah, yeah.
and AI is just eating up all profit. And I mean, not all profit yet, but watch Spotify and you'll see that a lot of it's going to AI now.
Yeah. I
So it's
I
like
I
that's
have
the
I have
future.
I don't know if this is a way of answering it, but like I have no idea because I don't listen to it. Like, so I'm not yeah, I don't really know,
Well,
but
maybe different, a slightly different question
maybe
though.
like the framing I'm trying to figure out here is like, so if people like it, is that bad? Right? Like because if like, is slop only slop if no one likes it, but if they do like it, then it's fine.
Well, maybe
And
just to
what do we
ask
do
that
about
question a
that?
slightly different way would just be like, are people getting what they want? People generally
Yes.
seem to be getting what they want, right? As far as like music and entertainment, because there is, I mean, there's like everything. Just a great example, right? Like, if you love Severance, it's there to watch it. But we know by the numbers that's not doing as well as like some
And
other
it's
popular
really
TV.
expensive.
Right. But I'm saying, but it's there. It's all there. It's like, if you're a Severance person, you can go find that. If you want the traditional whatever reality TV or simpler stuff, it's there too. So I don't know. There is a little bit of like, people kind of get what they want. So
Yeah. Well, so I signed after listening to reviews of the deep search thing last Thursday,
DeepSeek?
Friday. No. The Chat GPT deep search thing, which is
Yeah.
available at the pro level. I thought like I should try this out. So I signed up for the pro level of Chat GPT. And I think now let's reverse a lot of the care and feeding for the people whose careers and labor are displaced here, and just go. We'll go on the opposite end, the consuming the content. Never worry about the production and the culture behind it. But I've had it generate, let's say, I think maybe 10 reports so far, and my biggest problem with the report generation is making sure I read them because they're very lengthy. And you start, I mean, and this might be commentary on what we were just talking about, is you generate so many reports and they're 20 to 30 pages a piece and you got your life to live, right? So
my gosh. So
I could think of so many reports to generate, but I don't have time to read them all. It's like, it's like, imagine that you could read, you just had free access to everything that you could ever want to read, like the guy who broke his glasses, right? And your problem would not be one of quantity. It would be one of like quantity. Like, I don't have time to enjoy all these great Apple Plus shows.
So to sum
you
up,
could enjoy all of them because there's so few, but like
AI, who's got time for this?
but so that jokiness aside, which is true. Like, so there's 3 areas I think that it's been, I'm going to say been very successful at, right? So let me give you a quick review for people who aren't familiar with this. There's this thing called deep research. I know Google has it, and you can do it with GPT Researcher if you can figure out how to like run shit on your desktop, which I can't anymore, that I download from GitHub. Maybe Matt Ray can do it and ship me a Raspberry Pi cluster or something. But like, essentially you give it like a very lengthy prompt of what you want it to research, and it'll go out, it'll ask you a few more questions, and then it goes out and searches the web and its own model. And then in like 10 or 20 minutes, it like outputs this markdown formatted 20, 30 page report on the topic. So for example, there was the quarterly, pissing all over Gartner and analyst occurrence that we had, the quarterly occurrence of that. And so I was reading through it. It's fine. Good takesmanship. Love that kind of stuff. But I was thinking, like, I mean, I get what's going on in this argument. Like, the category that they picked here didn't work, Magic Quadrants. But like, I mean, how is their business doing? And then like, if I were to look at Gartner as a business, like what kind of corporate strategy would I do, and how would I think through what was possible in the markets landscape, what the summer interns would do and all of that kind of stuff. So I fed this, I published this at the Software Defined Talk Slack channel, I believe. If you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com and you search for Slack, you can find it there. And it's in the AI channel in there. I think I put it in there. But basically, it goes through, and now I didn't take the time to actually read every character in it, as I mentioned, nor verify all the facts, but it looks like it's doing a pretty good job. But it put together a very impressive like analysis of Gartner as a business, and like had commentary on my theories about people they should acquire and ways they could change their go-to-market. And it was like very good. As far as like, it would probably take you at minimum like 2 days, but more realistically, because of the kind of people you're going to hire to do this kind of grunt work, like 5 business days to do this kind of work, right? To put it all together. I don't know, maybe a little faster, but it was good. It had lots of good guidance on what Gartner should do to do better and like baseline their business. And then the next area, which I think all of humanity will be able to benefit from, is my son had 3, as they say, as you'll know, Brandon, summatives this week that he had to do on, or as we used to call them, tests.
Tests, right?
And we help him with studying, and part of the problem as the parent helping a student is like, if you think figuring out like strategy in a large corporate organization is a clusterfuck, just imagine trying to figure out what the fuck you're supposed to do for a test, right? Like, as an external person who comes in and you've got this like 90 slide rolling classroom agenda, and like there's kind of like little things spread out here and there, like it's an information architecture nightmare. and then every class does things in a different way. They're all, because it's an international baccalaureate program, instead of just like a sit in your desk and take notes and do stuff program. Like the whole theory of pedagogy is different. So it's really hard just to figure out what it is you're supposed to do for the test. And the teachers are trying, but it gets difficult. So you can take all of that stuff and feed it into the report and be like, will you just tell me how to help my kid do this? Right. And it does a really good job at it. Right. So he had to like annotate some poems, some sonnets and things like that. And I was like, I don't really even know what I'm supposed to do here. Right. Like, you got to give me some ideas. And so like, it was great. It helped coach through this and did some examples. So I think it was wonderful for that. Now, the third case, which I think is representative, is I was thinking like directly to something you were saying, Matt Ray. I was thinking like, you know what you could do is you could have it write supplemental D&D material and do some editing of it, and you could sell that. And that would be a fun side business to justify paying $200 a month for this. That was, trying to get some ROI there. And I had to do 2 reports. One, analyzing like what the business is like for supplemental D&D stuff. And I think it did a pretty good job. It went out and searched things and looked up advice and ranked things and suggested categories. A good strategy work. And then it did a not so great work about talking about how to use AI and other tools to like do these PDFs. It wasn't that great. But again, like the whole, like, what is a strategy for entering this? What is the plan you should be doing, and base research? I think it's great at. And then one last thing, it's not that great at interview prep. I've tried to use it twice for people we interview on software-defined interviews. And I think the problem there is that the people that we were interviewing don't have enough material to do something with, right? Like, there's not just enough stuff out there. Like, if you're asking about what should I do when I interview, like maybe even Martin Fowler, like it probably would do a pretty good job at gathering up all of that information.
But if
the net of the whole thing, I think we talked about it, I think a few episodes ago, like just the more you use it. So maybe that's the biggest thing. It's like everyone who's like, if you're close to it, like try to give it stuff for your job, right? And that will probably convince you or not convince you like how valuable it is. I think that's kind of whether it's writing strategy memos, building some code, even a small project on the side, doing some proofreading. Like that's to me, that's the kind of the ultimate test case is like when you sit down and I want you to do something that I get paid to do. And I want you to prove to me that you can do it faster, better, and certainly cheaper. And that's like, to me, the test going forward.
Right. And I think even if the content and the thinking, if that makes sense, in what it produces isn't the best, what it will be good at is giving you structure and transitions and organization. I guess that's all structure. But like I was just thinking, like, for over the years we've all been involved in this, where like some gigantic thing happens in the company you're working at, and you've got to just like redo everything, right? Like maybe part of your company gets sold off, you get bought by another company, there's major organizational shifts and product lines go here and there, whatever it may be, right? Laws change. And everyone's all like, oh, clear your schedules and like, order some pizza because we're going to be in this room for the next 4 days trying to figure out what to do. Right. And that would be a perfect thing of just like kind of like the Gartner example. It's just like dump all this stuff into it and be like, what would you do? And like, it's going to give, and then ask it 3 more times. And it's going to like generate these reports that, yes, you'll have to read, but it'll like start to like brainstorm and think things out. Because like, what you're going to do eating old pizza and takeout food over those past 5 days is going to be exactly the same thing. It's just going to take longer. You're just going to like ideate, if that's a word, and come up with things that people are going to say is bad and no. And like, so you basically are having someone like do all that toil work for you so that you can figure out what to do.
Agreed.
Speaking of, should Gartner eliminate the hype cycle?
If they eliminate that, what would they have left?
Well, if you read ChatGPT's report,
I know, but it's marketing. It builds awareness. Like I don't work in marketing, but I would hazard to guess like marketing people are frustrated by AI's ability to like understand stuff because marketing doesn't understand. Like nobody
Yeah.
knows what gets hooks into people. I mean, it's the classic 50% of my marketing dollars are wasted. Everybody knows that. And you try to apply heuristics and A/B testing and all that kind of stuff, but AI is not gonna have anything better. It doesn't understand
I
people.
don't know. I even go further. I just think this is sort of like the anti-AI side. It's like people are so accustomed to getting certain things. Like rankings is a great example. Like it's not a marketing thing. It's not a business. It's just a life thing. Like human beings need to summarize data. They want some type of rankings to determine like what is good, what is bad, who's, what it is, what it is. And it's like, so it's always interesting. I think this is Swix wrote this where, because I've had the same kind of feelings like, oh, this should all be, disrupted. We don't need Gartner anymore. And it's like, no, like at the end of the day, you're just kind of saying like people need rankings, and like we can argue about the rankings. That's probably the fun of being a human being. Is like I see some rankings, I disagree with them, I have different rankings, but there's just this fundamental need. And so I just think whether it's enterprise software or college football or anything in between, there's a need for rankings. There's always going to be a need for rankings. There's always going to be a debate about rankings, and you're not going to change that. Even if Gartner went away tomorrow and there's no more Magic Quadrant, you have Forrester. The Forrester wave is sitting right there, or whatever the IDC's next thing is. Like there will always be something because it's just the nature of what a human being wants. So you can have an AI generate rankings for you, and maybe you can say those are better, but you're never getting away from the need for this.
Listicles.
It isn't. I mean, it's never going away. Like, so I think that's sort of like.
I mean, yes, they could be generated, but you're not going to be like, you know what? People have evolved past, short nuggets of ideas or facts, and everybody is ready for like deep, in-depth reports.
Right.
I think we already established.
Everybody. I mean, I just think everyone needs a shortcut for something, right? Like we cannot all go out and be like, I'm going to research the best drill, or like, I'm going to do what is the best possible way to, television to buy or whatever. All the things that you do day to day. At some point, you just kind of like, I just need a shortcut. Like, what's the best reviewed thing on Amazon? What's the number one selling thing? What's the thing that was most reviewed by Wirecutter? All right, I'm buying some enterprise software. I'm like, what is everyone else using? Let me look at the Gartner rankings. Like, it's never going to end.
Something that never ends is bureaucracy. And do we have any of that this episode, Brandon?
We have a few things this week. So one, I hope I say the names correctly here. Sudesh is going to QCon Atlanta, and as well as the one in EU. I'm not sure where it is this year, but he is happy to plan a gathering. So if you are interested, join the Slack channel, go to the Meetups channel, and just let them know. I think that'd be cool if some of the listeners got together. There's usually a pretty big contingent of Software Defined Talk listeners at both, so hopefully people can get together. I will not be either one of them, but I don't know. Cote, Matt, Cote, you gonna make one of those? You may make one.
I was going to, but I don't think I am now.
All right. Well, hopefully people will have a party in our place. Also, if you're going to be at DevOps Day Chicago, I've set Brett a bunch of stickers. So if you want to get a sticker in person, go hook up with Brett. He's in the Slack channel. He'll be at DevOps Day Chicago. He'll be handing out Software Defined Talk stickers. I sent him a bunch, so you should have plenty. I also sent some stickers to Matthew in Minnesota. Happy to hear from him. And finally, if you would like stickers, all you have to do is send your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. Be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world.
Well, there's several conferences to go over here. Now, if you want to read all of them, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/506. There's even some discount codes for some of them, but I want to do something new here, and I'm going to highlight just one conference that I'll be going to, and that is London, March 27th to 28th, the Monkey Gross Conference. It's the EU version of the Red Monk Conference, so there may not be ice. We'll find out. It's in the UK though, which is this interesting melange of US and European
beer
culture.
be warm?
I think the beer will be cold. But we'll see. We'll have to track the ice. We've also, speaking of bureaucracy, we've had 2 great reports, lots of Intel activity on the ice machines of America. I appreciate the people who sent that in. Anytime you're at a hotel, motel, Holiday Inn, and you see an ice machine, please take a picture of it and send it in to the. Maybe we should make a whole channel, but we need to gather this intelligence about the ice machines of the world. Anyways, I'll be there, and I think it's a great conference. You should go to it. It might sell out sometime soon. It's in London, March 27th, 28th. It'll be a lot of fun. Their focus is on like the craft of AI or something like that, which should be good. Now, speaking of things that should be good, Matt Ray, what do you have to recommend this episode?
Well, this goes back to the who's got time for spending all their time researching and digging into what's the best. I went to Wirecutter, said I needed some earbuds, and so I bought the Beats Fit Pro. Previously I had gotten the AirPods 4. It was a corporate thing, so it wasn't what I had selected, but they didn't really work. My ears apparently need the little earbuds to work. So my misshapen ears and I now have the Beats Fit Pro, and they're pretty great. Yeah, they do all the stuff, all the noise, the noise isolation, and really tightly coupled to the default lifestyle of the Apple ecosystem. So, and they were on sale. So maybe they're on clearance. Maybe the new model's coming out.
This sounds like the perfect Matt Ray purchase. Like,
exactly.
Works in the Apple ecosystem, but not quite like an Apple thing so much as even though it
doesn't have the premium, but as far as I can tell, they're pretty great.
And the price is right. Love it. How about you, Brandon? What's your recommendation?
Well, I just want to let Matt knows Apple this week, they did announce the Power Beats Pro 2 now available. And it also does heart rate monitoring through your ears. So I don't know exactly.
Well, I got that in my watch.
So I was going to say, Matt, so maybe look forward, listeners, in 2 years when Matt picks up a cheap pair of Power Beats Pro 2, rather. And he'll give you review.
These are more than I mean, they've got like over the ear, and these are just little tiny buds, the ones I got. So
okay, all right, well, so we'll see.
I didn't need athlete ones. I've got my open runs already.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. This week, one, we already mentioned it, but Severance, I'm really enjoying it. Everyone should watch it. So I've already recommended that at least 10 times on this show. Another thing I've recommended before, but I like this specific episode, Oxide and Friends. That's always a good podcast, but I like their episode on AI disruption. So they talk a lot about DeepSeek and Cerebras. That's one of the companies. They had some co-founders on there talking about it. The part I really like, because I've been thinking this a lot to myself, and kind of back to some of the programming discussion, like one of the things that's often talked about when you talk about NVIDIA, if I'm saying that correctly, not NVIDIA, as I like to say, is CUDA, right? That's their proprietary way to program. And I've always been thinking to myself, man, I don't think it's that big a deal. I don't think that many people really do that. I think they're like me. They're just like, you crank up some Python and you use use Cursor, and like you can build these like pretty cool little apps, but you don't have to know anything about CUDA. So in this episode, they go through and they basically kind of say something similar. So I felt maybe vindicated as it partially, but also like, it's just like, once, like, why, like, who's writing at the low level if you don't have to anymore? Most of us are at the Python level, the simpler level. So I thought that was like maybe an obvious, but like it was interesting to hear people I think are deeply technical and think about this more than I do. They kind of agreed with it, so I was like, yeah, exactly. So so maybe Matt, you can update your NVIDIA research report to be like, CUDA, we don't, like, long term, we don't see this as a moat, as they like to say. The people on Acquired, they got it wrong. People on Acquired said it was like a 10,000 year moat, and it's like, I don't think so. I think it's just Python. It's Python API calls to OpenAI or Gemini or whatever, and it's not that hard to do.
Somebody else could deal with that interface, not me. It was a very good episode.
Yeah, so they went through a lot of stuff in there. Always, it's a wide-ranging discussion. So if you think this show's a little bit off track, well, that one, baby, they make us look good. But I think it's good. So if you want to hear more about AI disruption and a bunch of other kind of real nerdy chip stuff, listen to it.
Well, if it's like the past ones, it seems there'll be some moment where they're like, we got one of these GPUs and we hooked it up to an oscilloscope, and then we ran 10,000 tests through it. And we found this one little thing that didn't deliver on the thing, and we flew to Taipei, and then we were trying to get them to talk to us about this, but then on and on and on until they're like,
no, they didn't do that. That happens a lot of the episodes, but this one not so much. I will say this though, I'm always back to like, if my life depended on like a computer working correctly, I would buy an Oxide computer. I would just be like, they have like, they think about computers in a way that I think even the biggest people are, the most technical people are, they seem to be at that next level. They are thinking about it at a level that very few, and passion too, the passion of computer design.
But do they have good defaults?
Well, I have two recommendations here. One is I know it's ancient, but I started I've always used Spotlight as my app launcher here on Mac OS, and I know I'm wrong, but I was having some frustrations. It just couldn't do fundamental things like open up a folder that I wanted, and so I started using Alfred, which is the oldest of all of these things, I think, and it looks like the year it was born in. But it's great. It's super fast. It works well. You can encode like what do they call what do they call text expander stuff nowadays? Like little you type in like little things and it'll expand it out into big stuff, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff built into it. Totally worth it.
All right, Coach, before you go on, I want to do, because we're gonna get some people are gonna say like, why are you deviating from the default lifestyle? So I'm just gonna pick on the one use case you said.
Yeah.
Okay, Spotlight. When you say it cannot open up a folder that you want, I'm gonna say
it can.
I don't think that's true. Like, what is the issue?
And so I have just had too many experiences where I go into Spotlight and I just want to I want to go to, the Storm King's Thunder PDF, and I start typing it in, and I'm like, fuck it, I can get to it faster, right? Like I can go find things, or like, and it even sometimes doesn't know all the.
I'm gonna push you on it. We're gonna go deep on this. Okay, so you type in Storm Kings in Spotlight, and it does not work. It does not bring it up, but in Alfred brings it up faster.
How can I? Now I have to try because I have Spotlight taken away.
See,
but I've got it overwritten here.
Because I'd succumbed back to Spotlight. Like,
I don't know.
Like, I understand. Go ahead, keep going.
Now you can also, for the keyboard expansions, you can also do that in the keyboard settings if you know where that is.
Yes, you can do that in Mac. But let's not get to that one. I just want to take you on just this one. You couldn't find the file in the Finder. It literally did not work. And what is Alfred doing? That's different.
Also, what you can do is you can stay in there, and so you can get a folder, and then you can go into the folder while you're in the UI, which I don't remember if Spotlight does that or not. But I don't know. Maybe you're right, Brandon. Maybe I'm forsaking the lovely Spotlight thing, but I feel like the experience I'm having here is more enjoyable. Now,
I don't know. I feel like I'm going to call this, we're in the Cote note.
That's true.
We're in the Cote note-taking cul-de-sac. It won't let me use my graph paper. It's like, real? Are you sure? I feel like we may be in that cul-de-sac here, right?
It could be.
I'm not saying Alfred doesn't have any features. I'm just saying, at least the file one. I want to really hold you accountable on that one.
I think maybe what I should do is I won't do this, but this full length. But maybe between now and next episode, I should go back to using Spotlight, and we can do some A/B testing.
I love it.
Here.
Come back and tell me what you learned. That'd be great.
Yeah, I think
next
that'll be good.
episode.
Now the other recommendation, which has nothing to do with the Mac OS system, is I might have mentioned this, but there's a site that covers U.S. politics called Political Wire. It's kind of like a tech meme for U.S. politics. I know Tech Meme has its own thing, but it's basically like a pay. It's not members only, but there's a paid tier of it, and so you can kind of read stuff here and there. But they have additional content, including a weekly podcast that's paid only, and I think it's pretty good. Like, I took to heart all that stuff 10 years ago that I shouldn't follow politics and have my life better. So I've got about a decade of credit in reading politics.
Must be nice.
Yeah. So I think with the combination of Political Wire and reading The Economist, I think I got it covered. And then what pops up in our tech stuff, but it's good. It has all the outrageous stuff, but in a very calm, non-outraging sort of stuff. Very well excerpted. And done well. Plus, the weekly podcast is fun to listen to. If you like the Ben Thompson world of podcasts, you'll enjoy this podcast as well. Speaking of podcasts, you'll enjoy. You just enjoyed another great episode of Software Defined Talk. If you want to get the show notes for this episode, all sorts of things we didn't talk about, and things we did, those conferences that I didn't mention that are great, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/506 and find that. There's also a Slack channel that you can join, discuss things during the week, where I shared the PDF of this research stuff, all sorts. There's even a sports channel if you're into whatever that is. and you can follow things along, hang out with a bunch of nerds. And now, if you've listened this far, you probably are a nerd, and you should probably go hang out with someone instead of just us, in a good way. And don't worry, you're fine. I'm validating you, not labeling you. And with that, see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, good job as always. Good to see a bunch of people watching the live stream. Nice to see Michael, Brian, Henning, I believe you say that, as well as a few others. Well, I don't know, Matt. I will say the sound. I didn't hear any necessarily like the low level noise, but I don't know, Matt. Your volume, like especially right at the end, got super loud. So I don't know if that's like
maybe I just got excited.
And maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I'll ask people in the chat. Did Matt sound a little bit loud here in the last like maybe 3 minutes? See if anyone's still on. I don't know. Maybe that was just me hearing it. Maybe it was just so much. He had this, the Alfred conversation really woke him up, so
he was on it.
Yeah. Well, I got slides to do, so time to go.
Stuff to do. All right. Well, thanks for everyone watching. We should be streaming this time about next week. Until then, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.